Hope everybody's doing well today. Welcome to another episode of the Justice Tech Pros podcast. Today's going to be, I guess, a combination. It could go on either setting, so to speak, where I could have used either background, but I told you guys I prefer this background, so I wanted to use it. But today's really it's not so much a chat session because I do have a specific topic I'm going to kick around. And as it relates to the legal system, I want to talk about those things. But I will be doing some chats as well. So it'll all intertwine pretty nicely, I think. I put out a little while back, I don't remember how long, about associates. I want to talk about that term. And it's not the way some people thought. Some people were under the impression I was going to be defining like associates and how it is with organized crime. No, I don't touch on any of those topics. I'm not like these other podcasts, that really they come out and they talk about that kind of stuff. I just don't believe in that. I don't really relate to that, and it's not what my podcast is about. I'm talking about the term associate, and I want to explore how it's used in the legal system, and I also want to explore how a lot of these informants will try to put that label on themselves in an attempt to give some kind of credibility. They use that term when convenient. So basically, you hear that a lot. Before I actually get into that, a couple things I wanted to touch on. I made the announcement, I'm pleased to say and honored to say, I'm going to be going on the Skinny podcast with Joey Merlino. He and I are going to be working out the exact day of that and the details and whatnot. But that's going to be coming. We're going to do a good conversation. We don't. I don't do interviews. It's not like that. It's more just two friends talking, and we're going to talk about our experience and our point of view as it relates to a lot of these lying informants. And we may also tap into the issue that I always raise when you have the lying informant enablers who pretty much host these guys and the effects of that. So I think it's going to be a great discussion. Stay tuned to the Skinny podcast with Joey Merlino. And I'll make an announcement on my page so everybody knows when that episode's going to come out. Other than that, things are moving along. I'm going to be making an announcement soon. Now's not the time. It's an announcement directly related to a case that's near and dear to my heart. It has nothing to do with the appeal aspect. There's been other developments that I'm going to talk about. Now's just not the time for that. So when the time comes, I'll get into that. I don't like to talk about, I guess, matters I consider a little more something you want to hold close to your chest, a little more private, until unfortunately they get made public. And eventually, what I'm going to talk about will be made public, and then I'll go into it then and address it then. But now's not the time for that. But I just want to kind of give everybody a little bit of a heads up that I will be talking about something. It's fairly it's fairly I don't know what the right term is for it, but it's just something that needs to be discussed and talked about. When the time comes, I'll get to that. So let me get into the whole associate thing. What plays out a lot in court for the members of the public that aren't familiar with it, what happens a lot of time in the court system is when they bring an indictment, and it may have to do with individuals who are labeled as organized crime members, a lot of times they'll attach other people to those indictments, and they'll say, well, they're not an organized crime member, but they're an associate. So that will kind of tie them in and right from the beginning paint a little bit of the angle that this person's guilty because they have this label of associate. So it's used a lot of times as almost planting a seed and used as a tool and a strategy for the prosecution oftentimes. Because many times, when you think of an associate, on any level, you just think of somebody who's kind of involved with another person. Maybe they do business dealings or whatnot, and that then transforms into them wearing the label of associate. Specifically with organized crime, when they talk about associates, it's somebody who is not a supposed made member, but somebody who is in the trenches, so to speak, and working with different individuals that may have that label of organized crime. And working with them in various business dealings or different kind of aspects. That's normally the term they'll try to use. But what the court tries to use, the prosecution tries to use, I should say, they'll try oftentimes to paint somebody an associate almost to pressure them. And what I mean by that is I've seen so many times somebody who's supposedly labeled organized crime, they may have lunch with somebody. They may just meet somebody. I've even seen it where somebody was their barber. They cut their hair and they label them an associate. And they do that to try to taint it, to try to make it that it's some kind of sinister aspect to it. You know, because it's not as colorful to say, well, this guy just cut his hair. That's really not colorful, right? It doesn't play into the whole image that they're trying to portray. So they'll then say, oh no, he's not his barber, he's an associate. And it's kind of play on words because, again, it may be somebody that an individual may just had a cup of coffee with, or it may be somebody who maybe this person who's supposedly organized crime goes to a club and an individual may hang out in that club, may play cards. Don't do anything illegal. Obviously, if they're not playing cards for money, don't do anything illegal. But I'm just saying, sit in the social club, maybe watch some games, talk. Nothing illegal going on, right? But they'll try to label that person an associate. And on the flip side of it, some people will try to consider themselves an associate. I've seen many times you get people who have nothing to do with anything. They're not involved in anything. They have nothing to do with anything. They may just be friendly with somebody who supposedly have some kind of label of organized crime. And then they'll go around giving themselves that own label, that they're an associate. They just put that on themselves. You know why? Because, again, that gives them clout. It's kind of like where you get these people that they always say, and I got to be honest, from what I know, it's all bullshit. These people who try to say, oh, these guys, they'll groom younger generation. They'll groom young men. They'll try to put their glom on them and make them, force them to join them in this criminal enterprise. Again, from what I know, all BS, okay, all BS. That's not how things work. You don't have these old men or these supposed wise guys trying to recruit people, trying to glom people. No. More often than not, it's people who want to be around those individuals and they want to label themselves an associate so they feel somewhat important, or they want to use that person's name. That person's not trying to groom them, but somebody that's young and maybe that's the way of life they want to go. They try to do everything they can to impress that person. It's really where they're pushing the issue. They're making it known, this is what I want to do, this is the direction I want to go. My experience throughout my whole life with people who are supposedly labeled organized crime, it's always been stay out of trouble, go to school, pay your taxes, be a good citizen, don't get involved with any BS. Those are all the things I've seen and all the lessons I have witnessed from people that supposedly bear these titles. They always try to guide family, friends, younger people to do the right thing, to go on the right track, to do things, to be successful in life. That's what I've experienced. Now, you get a lot of people on YouTube who they want to impress YouTube audience, so they have a different take on it. You know, they'll be like, oh, I was doing this, and these old timers were grooming me, and they were tricking me and trying to suck me in and trying to allure me to this really appetizing lifestyle. You know, they'll paint it like that. But I'm going to tell you something, folks. Here's the bottom line. Anybody, and I mean anybody who's on YouTube, and they're talking about those type of things, and they're claiming and they're dropping names, and they're bragging about things they've done and people they've known, the odds are they were one of those people that I described that maybe is friendly with somebody they knew, shook a hand with somebody that supposedly whatever. They weren't in any kind of trenches, because people that I know that are serious people, maybe have done certain things, whatever it may be, they're not going to be on YouTube talking about it in any capacity. They're just not going to be on YouTube talking about it like that. Okay, so right away for me, that's a red flag when you see these different shows and people are saying X this, X that, this one, that one. To me, that's a red flag, because in my world, people who are supposedly involved in different things and have certain labels that the government and society may put on them, they're not about attention. They're not about going on YouTube. They're not about bringing attention to things. They're not about talking about things. So for me, that's a red flag. If you see somebody talking about stuff, I just don't relate to it. And I think a lot of times what these informants do is they'll grab that associate label and try to use it to impress their audience. Perfect example, Frank Pasquale III. All that guy was, his father was supposedly in organized crime. He has that label of organized crime, his father, supposedly, right? This kid was always known as a junkie, a dirtbag, so much so that even family members would say, stay away from him. Unfortunately, he has a drug problem, this and that, and whatnot. Now, excuse me 1 second, I'm just checking, I got a text. Okay, so this individual went on all the podcasts. He went on a couple podcasts at the beginning of Vlad, John A. Light, and he ran with the whole I'm an associate thing, right? That's all he talked about. I'm an associate. No, you're not an associate. Nobody did business with you. Nobody interacted with you on that level. You were just a junkie who did junkie things, degenerate things, and you would try to use that term and try to manipulate the public by saying you did those things on behalf of some kind of criminal organization, when in reality, that's not the truth. These were individual-based things this person did solely on their own, degenerate things, selling heroin, shoving heroin up his ass, then beating his wife, beating his kid. These are all degenerate things. I remember he made a remark on Vlad, I think, that he got charged with, and I talked about this when I covered him on one of my episodes, but when he got charged with intimidating a witness, right? He tried making it had to do with organized crime. Had zero to do with any organized crime. That was an individual thing, whereas it was a junkie case, something with selling drugs and whatnot. And that had to do with him. Whatever he did, he did. It had nothing to do with organized crime, nothing to do with he was an associate doing it on behalf of people. Complete lie. That's what they do. That's the smoke and mirrors, folks. They come out, they say, I'm an associate, and then people will be like, well, maybe he is because his dad is whatever, so-and-so. So people assume that. Not the case. Not the case at all. Individually based. This person was just a junkie, selling drugs, doing all illegal stuff on his own. Had nothing to do with any kind of organization. But all of these channels, these YouTubers, these content creators, they buy into it. They're like, he said he's an associate. Let's put him on and hear all about it. When in reality, that's not the case. It's used in a lot of different ways to manipulate the term and to bring different levels of importance to the term depending on the setting. In the courtroom, the prosecution uses it to plant the seed of doubt and guilt on a defendant who may be labeled an associate. Even though this person, like I said, may have just cut somebody's hair, may have just delivered something, may have met them, may just be an honest friend or an honest business partner or a business associate, legitimate business associate. But they'll remove the business part and just say associate to make it look sinister. So I noticed they'll try to take relationships and taint them. Maybe somebody who is alleged organized crime goes and has a meal with somebody else, and it's a totally legitimate conversation that takes place at the table. They're talking about sports, talking about health, catching up, but yet they leave, and they may try to use that as if they were doing some kind of business dealings. They'll try to use that and say, you see why this associate, quote unquote, met with this person? Because they were discussing X, Y, and Z, this big crime that's going to go on. Now it's on the defendant to disprove that. And think about it. How hard is it to disprove a lie? It's your word against theirs, right? You saying, no, that's not what we talked about at the table. We didn't even discuss anything like that. But it doesn't matter. The government's going to say you did, and you got to prove you didn't. And how do you prove you didn't? You don't have the conversation recorded. There's no evidence of what took place. And that's the game, folks. That's how they play it. Because they know it's very hard to disprove a lie. It's very hard if somebody's lying on you and you have no physical, tangible evidence to disprove it. It boils down to your word against them. And the government uses that, and they know that, and they use it in a way that's beneficial. And you'll see that play out time and again. You'll see all these people label it as an associate, when in reality, that's not the definition of the term. They're not into any kind of ill dealings. They're not into anything illegal. They're not doing anything crime-wise. They may just have a relationship with the person, a harmless relationship, harmless friendship, but they want to label them as an associate to paint it a certain way, to make everything around this person who they may be targeting, they want to make it as if everything they touch, they taint and they ruin and they criminalize it, right? And that's not the case. And that's what I wanted to explore, and that's what I'm talking about now. And then you see a lot of these lying informants that run with that. They have nothing to do with anybody. They never really had any kind of dealings on that level with any kind of organized crime. But they'll take that tag, that associate tag, and they'll do a million shows. And then all the enablers will put in the title, associate, this is an associate. And they'll run with that and milk that term. And that just puts it into the public's head. Oh, if it's an associate, that means they were involved in criminality. See, that's the play that they do. The government, listen, I don't got to tell everybody, they're very smart. Very intelligent. They know what they're doing. They know the psychological aspect of it. They know the legal aspect of it. They know how to strategize. So it's very important for people to be aware of those strategies and aware of those games so they could weed through it and sort fact from fiction and truth from lies. That's what's important. And that's why I do what I do, to try to appeal to the free thinkers out there, the individuals who could think on their own, not being influenced by anybody, including myself. Just look at the case, look at the facts, evaluate the people. That's who I try to appeal to. And that's what my focus is. And again, the social media part of it, it's great. My podcast is great for connecting and just, venting some stuff and trying to educate the public. But the real work is done behind the scenes. The real work, what I do, is done within my company, in my organization, helping defendants, helping families, what we push back, putting out the stuff from the lying informants, which there's going to be a lot more coming out. I have a lot of things ready to launch. I just have to hold off, like I said, for certain reasons. And that thing's just going to be an organic database that continues to grow and enhance. And you see, when you get involved in YouTube and you're dealing with content creators, you see these content creators where they try to make these competitions that don't exist. If I do a show on associates, let's just say, then they'll try to do a show on associates and say they know more and they do more. I couldn't give a shit. I don't care what any of them do. It's not what I'm here for. I don't do podcasts on the mob like these guys do, which to me is ridiculous. But I don't do those kind of things. So I couldn't care what they do. And for me, I'm going to be honest, folks. I look at credibility of people. And that's what I weigh their words by. So if people are talking about things and they're talking about things that I may agree with, but if I look at what they've done in the past, whether they were friends with informants, taking pictures with informants, hanging out with informants, hosting informants, at one time talking on phones with informants, their credibility means nothing to me. So anything they say or try to do, it doesn't mean anything. It really don't, because to me, that's somebody, it's just whatever's convenient for the time. 5 years ago, they're hanging out with informants. Today, they're anti-informant. 5 years from now, they'll be pro-informant again. So you can't really get vested with that kind of information because you already know where it's coming from. It is an unstable foundation. It's all about foundation, right? Think about when I started We Push Back and a bunch of morons tried doing this We Punch Back. Where did that go? Why? Foundation. Look at the foundation. Look at the characters involved. And that's why with me, what We Push Back, I made it just me. Because I got to be able to rely on what I could do, not what other people could do. Just what I could do. So you always got to go by the stability of the foundation. Who's putting the information out there? Who now is a big rat hunter that 2 years ago was putting every rat known to man on the internet? Every snitch known to man on the internet? Every informant known to man, hosting them, talking with them, interacting with them, having phone calls with them, guiding them, giving them advice. Come on now. Can you really, do you think that's a strong foundation? Do you think that's somebody that really believes anything? How could they believe anything? How could you feel that strongly about something in one breath, and in the next breath, you're fine with interacting with somebody you're supposedly so against? If you're so against informants, how can you interact with them at any level? You can't. That just means at the core of it, you're not that against it, which is fine. It's no big deal. I'm not here to tell people be against informants. See, that's what a lot of people think. A lot of people think, oh, Dominic, the second you say you're anti-informant, he's your friend. Not true at all. Couldn't care. I weigh the character. There's a lot of people who say anti-informant that I wouldn't cross the street with. Not my type of people. Because in one breath they're saying anti-informant, in the next breath they're hanging out with chats with informants. They're being cordial to them. They're on screen with them. They're engaging with them. Come on. How serious is that, folks? One thing about me, like it or hate it, day one, in my personal life and on here, same thing. I don't engage with informants. I won't go in chats with informants. I won't hang out with people who host informants. I won't compliment people who are friends with informants. Not for me. I have a very strong line. That's me. I'm sure people think I'm whacked out of my mind. Don't care. But you know who don't think I'm whacked out of my mind? My circles. The ones that matter in life. The real circles. The people that I interact with, that I engage with. They're on the same page with me. So when they're on the same page with me, I'm good to go. When people I care about are on the same page with me, I know I'm in the right space. And that's why I actually take pleasure when I get these morons, these enablers and the informants as well, who try to abuse me, insult me, and attack me. That's right where I need to be. That's right where I need to be. I can't say it enough. They should never say anything nice about me. I can't say it enough. I actually say it so much, it nauseates me because it's the truth. That's how I feel. If they said something good about me, I would think I'm doing something wrong. I completely stand for opposite what they're about. They're flip-flop. They go back and forth. One day they hate them, one day they like them. There's no in-between with me. There's no gray line. It's black and white. I don't like them, won't interact with them, won't engage with them. Very simple. If you host them, if you platform, if you enable them, if you give them a voice to attack people, to lie, don't want nothing to do with you either. Just the way it goes. Just the way it goes. And you get the ones on the podcast, they go on, they think they're doing groundbreaking information, talking about organized crime history, what goes on. This, okay, great, maybe that's your thing. To me, it's not my interest. It's not my interest. And I'm not insulting it, it's just not my interest, not something for me. I remember a while ago, somebody was saying, oh, Dominic wants to take down all those channels that talk about organized crime. Not too bright to even think that. First off, there's probably tens of thousands of channels. Second off, I couldn't give a shit. It's not my business. I don't watch it, don't want to know about it, don't care about it. It's not my forte. But what I find amazing is when these people do that, where they're like these historians, supposedly, they think they're actually an authority on the topic because they're a historian. That doesn't equate to me. What, because you read about it? You read about it? You heard from some informants about it? You're an expert now? You have some kind of opinion that supersedes everybody else's? Nah, not at all. Not impressed by it. And to me, honestly, those shows do a lot of damage. Those shows talk about people's business. They have a lot of information that's wrong. They're putting business out there of people. They're putting people on the radar that didn't ask to be put on the radar. And they're talking about their business. So I have no respect when people talk about other people, talk about, oh, this is where this guy lived. This is his house. This is what he did. I have no respect for that. I look at it very personally. You're invading somebody's personal space. Yeah, I know. I understand. They're a public figure in your definition. In mine, they're not. In my definition, they're a defendant who had a case, was accused of being organized crime, and they're either in jail, they're out, or they're dead. I don't know how that makes them a public figure. They didn't ask to be a public figure. They're not signing autographs. They're not out there trying to do interviews and make themselves a public figure. They're just a regular person who's a defendant who has a label, and now all these podcasters, they exploit that. They talk about their family, they talk about their history, they talk about nonsense facts, and they think they're an expert on organized crime. Imagine that's on your resume. What do you do? I'm an expert in organized crime. What the fuck? I'd be like, okay, next. I mean, is that what they put on their resumes? I'm curious, YouTuber, organized crime expert. Podcaster, organized crime expert. Great, really good. Go write some books. Nonsense to me, folks, nonsense. And if I sound a little more brash this time and a little more bold, it's because I am. I see so many things and so many phonies of people trying to act like they believe a certain thing or a certain way, and they don't. Their actions dictate they don't. They could say it till they're blue in the face. Watch their actions. Watch their actions. You can't say in one breath you're anti-informant, in the next breath you're hanging out with those who platform them. You're promoting those who platform them. You're talking about those who platform them. You're pushing shows that talk about organized crime and families. No, that's not how it works. That tells me you're on the outside looking in. That's all that tells me, which is normal. But a lot of these people claim they're on the inside looking out. And that's not the case. They're not on the inside looking out. They're on the outside looking in, but they're pretending to be on the inside. Because the facts are, if they were on the inside, they wouldn't do what they're doing. Those are the facts, folks. They could tell you whatever they want. Those are the facts. They wouldn't be doing what they were doing if they were on the inside. Okay, when they're on the outside looking out, yeah, then they're writing about people, talking about people, telling people's business, telling strangers on the internet who they're friends with. I would never come on here, drop names, say I'm friends with this one, I had coffee with that. That's nobody's business. That's my business. I'm not here for that. But we all know why they're doing that, right? They're doing that to impress the humps out there, the fanboys out there, the fangirls. That's what they do. They drop names, they invent stories, they talk about this, this, and that. That's what it's all about. I can't relate to that on any level, and I want nothing to do with that kind of stuff. Nothing to do. Too many people are rotting in jail based on people that constantly talk about them, talk about their life, bring them up, talk about their business. So I wouldn't take part in that. I wouldn't promote it, and I can't relate to it. I just can't relate to it. The only people, in my opinion, who have a right to talk about those individuals are the family members. That's it. The family members want to come on, talk about their family. Hey, that's their right. That's their business. I don't do that. I'm not into that. But they're the only ones who have the right. It's the family members. They want to talk about their family. But when you get these strangers or supposed friends talking about people and giving out their business, I don't know, folks. I find that hard to believe. That they believe what they say they believe when their actions dictate something entirely different. Even say you supposedly knew X, Y, and Z. Why you got to come on a public forum and talk about it? Why you got to put that business out there? Why do you want the public to know, who you knew, who you may have done business with? Why do you want that? Very simple. Because some people in life happen to look up to that like it's some kind of, I don't even know, like it's something. To me, it don't mean anything, but some people look at it differently. So that's why they do it, for like the impressive factor. Drop names, drop this, drop that. That'll be the day I come on here and talk about things like that. Nuts, man. No, I don't know. I just can't relate to it on any level. So that was kind of the chat session of this one. I wanted to kind of vent about that because I see it popping up left and right, and I can't relate to it. And I really wanted to talk about the my personal perspective on the associate and how the court system uses it and how it can be such a dangerous label when you're in the court of law. And if you don't really deserve to wear that label, you get it anyway. Imagine like you're just a barber, you're cutting somebody's hair and they try to make you an associate and you're a legitimate guy and they're putting pressure on you and this and that. That's how they get people to lie when they inform. Because these people, legitimate people, they're not associates or anything. And they may put pressure on them to kind of, all right, well, give us information. We're saying you're an associate. Tell us something. Then that's when the imagination starts. That's like that Frankie Pasquale and a lot of these informants. That's when the imagination starts because they're like, oh, yeah, I could use the associate angle. So, yeah, I'm an associate. So let me tell you some of the stuff I've done as an associate. When in reality, they didn't do anything as part of any group. They did it all individually. Excuse my dog barking in the background. And that's the facts of it. Folks. And those are the things I wanted to kind of kick around. Again, I can't relate to those shows on organized crime and people. I see it even myself. They'll put one channel will, every once in a while, he resurfaces. He has to put the same news reporting where it shows my old man and this and that. I could relate why that's not a great thing. You don't want to see that as a family member. But there's nothing I could do about it. I'm not going to look to stop it. It's impossible. I don't even care about that. It's not my business. They can do whatever they want. That's why I find it funny when people are like, oh, he wants to take down all these organized crime channels. What are you, nuts? I'm not on no crusade to take any organized crime. I'm not on a crusade to take any channel down. I told you I want the lying informant channels to keep going. They're just helping people. They don't even realize how many people they're helping recently. And I don't want to say too much, but some of them are helping people. Okay? So keep talking. It has nothing to do with that. I look at it like I'll just stay in my lane when I see certain channels start to go that direction, start to talk about that stuff that I can't relate to. That's it. I unsubscribe. I don't go to the channel no more. It's not for me. Nothing personal. It's not for me. Not my type of topic. Not things I'm used to. People I'm used to if they supposedly have these ridiculous labels, whatever you want to put, they don't talk like that. They don't act like that. They don't put their business out like that. They don't want the public knowing all about them. They don't. So that's why I know when you see people with these stories and dropping names, I take it with a grain of salt. Unfortunately, I don't believe probably 90% of it. I just don't. And who knows, it may be true, but I can't relate to it, because if it is true, it boggles my mind that that would be permitted. In other words, if somebody supposedly legal organized crime and this person's a friend with them and they're out talking about all this stuff, I have a hard time equating how that's acceptable. And that just tells me I believe 90% of it's BS. I believe people exaggerate a lot of their relationships where they'll be like, oh, I'm really good friends with this guy. Meanwhile, maybe the guy's just cordial to them. I've experienced that myself. My pops is a very friendly guy. He's very cordial. He's very respectful. I try to emulate him in a lot of ways. And I've seen it a lot where he'll just say hi to somebody. Hey, how you doing? Have a little conversation. You may see them. He used to go to Arthur Avenue a lot, my pop, and he'd always get meats and sausages, all the Italian stuff. He'd load up at the deli. And then he'd come home and he'd tell me, oh, I ran into this guy. I haven't seen him in 5 years. Nice guy. And then you'll find out later where this guy's going around saying, oh, Stevie's a great friend of mine. We're good friends. No. You're not friends. He was being cordial. He said hello. He's a respectful guy. He says hello. He's nice. And that's what happens a lot. That's what happens. A lot of these people will get that compliment. They'll get that interaction. And all of a sudden they make the leap from just, oh, I just happen to see this guy. They'll make the leap to, oh, we're best buddies. We're friends. We're hanging out. That's why it's very hard to know what's true, what's not, when you hear a lot of these crazy stories. But I know from my experience, people, friends, and things like that maybe, they had some legal trouble. Maybe they're away. Maybe they had some labels. They wouldn't be on YouTube talking about it. Even when they get out, they wouldn't come back and be bragging about it or discussing it. It is what it is, and they just move on. So when you have people talking about all that, talking about supposed illegal things they did and who they were around, you got to take it with a grain of salt, folks. I'm telling you, take it with a grain of salt. It's probably an instance, like I said, where they're friendly with somebody and they make it a lot more than what it is. Do you know how many times somebody would tell me, oh, I know your dad, I'm friends with your dad, or I know. And then I'll ask my father, I'll be like, hey, Pop, you know this guy? I got no idea who he is. That'll be his answer. I got no idea, Dom. So the relationship means a lot more to some people than it does to the actual individuals they're referring to, is my point. And unfortunately, that gets people in trouble. A lot of times that'll get some of these individuals that are labeled organized crime, it'll get them in trouble because they will be cordial to somebody and be friendly. Then that person will leave, right? They'll go do whatever they're doing. Maybe they're doing something illegal. Then they'll make a phone call and they'll call their friend Bobby and say, hey, Bobby, guess who I was just hanging out with? I was hanging out with Stevie. Now what? Boom. Now they got Stevie connected to this guy, connected to Bobby. Now they just dragged that person in to their BS when that person had no friggin' idea what they were doing. And they just dragged them in from that one phone call because that person that they're engaging with is a high-profile individual. Maybe they're a high target. So they're watching, they want, the government wants to hear anything related to that person. So boom, they could really jam them up. And that's what the public don't see. They don't see the reality of the situation. They don't see, whereas, let's just say, again, let's pick a fictional guy. Let's pick Rocco, okay? Rocco is a big crime boss, right? Rocco's hanging out in a social club. He wanted to go see some of his friends from childhood, play some cards. There's a new guy in the social club, nice guy. He brings food every day. He'll bring drinks for people. He hangs out. He'll take care of the table, maybe clean up. People are friendly with him. They engage with him. But that's it. It's just at the club, and that's it. People are like, oh, yeah, I know this guy. We'll call him Petey. I know Petey. Petey takes care of the club. He's a nice guy. That'll be the end of it, right? Now what they'll do is, now Petey leaves the club, and a lot of these guys who hang around, they all got big mouths, so they got to tell everybody who was at the club, right? So now they'll go home. They'll get on the phone. Maybe the phone's tapped. Now they're telling everybody, oh, I'm hanging out with Rocco. I'm hanging out with this one. I'm hanging out with Joey, this and that. Now that's where the investigation starts, quote unquote. And I say quote unquote because it's a bullshit investigation. They're just trying to tie people into it. So now they'll track this Petey. Now they find out Petey's dealing drugs, Petey's doing this, Petey's doing all this illegal stuff. They'll say, wait a minute. Petey is an associate of those guys in the club. Petey brings them drinks. They're not going to say that, of course. They can say, oh, he talks to them. He's friends with them. As opposed to the reality of the situation where everybody's just being cordial with the guy. That's it. They're not friends. But the government will say, no, they're friends. He's an associate. He's dealing drugs. You better tie it back to everybody he knows at the club. And think about how dangerous that is, folks. We meet people every day in life. Say one of us, say you just happen to be a high-profile target individual, somebody the government don't like. Now, a lot of, obviously, citizens don't have to worry about that. They'll never have to deal with that. I'm just trying to get you to picture how it works, that's all. And I know a lot of people think of it, well, they're criminals, so they deserve everything that comes their way. I don't look at it that way. I just look at it more like it's got to be by the law. You got to honor the Constitution. And that's just my way of looking at it. People disagree with me. I get it. But I don't look at it that way. I don't think you should be setting people up. I think if they're doing crime, okay, get them on doing the crime, but don't make stuff up about it. Don't invent charges. And that's how they'll invent the charges, going back to my point. Now they'll see Petey is up to no good. He's dealing drugs, whatever he's doing. And that's it. That's the tie-in. They got Petey on the phone talking about all these supposed organized crime figures that he's friends with, quote unquote. But the reality is he's not friends. He just happens to hang out in the same place they do. But they'll make it friends. They'll label him associate. Boom, they got an indictment. And they drag everybody else into that indictment. Now it's up to those guys to say, hey, I don't know this friggin' Petey guy. He's at the club. And a lot of guys aren't going to say that. They're not going to so they're behind the eight ball. You're behind the eight ball from the beginning. Now you have to strategize how to disprove that lie. And that's where my firm comes in. That's where we start really analyzing Petey, and looking into Petey to try to help the defendants prove that in the right way. So that's what I wanted to touch on today. I don't know when the next podcast will be. Like I said, I got a few things going on that are serious, and my next podcast will probably be to address the topic that I kind of hinted towards, and I don't want to get into that now. But that'll be as time prevails and as time moves by. So that's it for today, folks. I think I talked enough. I think it was a nice discussion. I gave a lot of my opinions, a lot of my feelings, and it is what it is. Till next time. Oh, hold on one second because my mouse ain't working to shut it off, but that'll allow me to do this. As always, folks, I just want to thank everybody who supports myself, supports Justice Tech Pros, supports We Push Back. I even want to thank the people who may not like me, but they believe in We Push Back, and they promote that. They believe in that concept because overall it's going to help people. And that's what it's about. It's not about just doing a podcast saying, oh, I'm helping this guy, helping. No, it's actually doing it. Behind the scenes, not getting pats on the back, not talking about it, not saying, hey, guess what case I'm working on? Hey, guess what family I'm helping? That's not what it's about. When you really want to help somebody, you shut your mouth, you do what you got to do, you help them, and that's that. When you get these people who got to pat themselves on the back, say, I did this, this, and that, well, that tells you what the real agenda is. They want the accolades. If you're in it and your heart's in it, then you help who you got to help, you be quiet about it, and you move along. And that's my focus. I want to help who I got to help in the background, let them use my resources, let them use what's available to me to enhance whatever they're working on, to help them, to help their families, to help in whatever capacity can help. Okay? And We Push Back, it's not a business. Not a business at all. It doesn't generate any money. It actually costs me a ton of money. That's about the lying informants. There's no business aspect of it. It's strictly a cause. It's strictly a belief system, and it's strictly about creating a database to bring attention to these lying informants, their behavior, the lies they tell, the stories they tell, and let the public digest that, analyze that, and if they're a future jury, use that knowledge to make a decision. That's what it's about. So I just wanted to clarify that. Justice Tech Pros is my business. That's where attorneys will hire my firm to support litigation. And you could go to the website. I'm not going to bore everybody with that. But that's the difference between the two. I just wanted to kind of make that clear and put that out there. And I think that's it, folks, for now. Thank you, everybody, again. Thank all the content creators. As a matter of fact, Kane Shades and Bay 8th, two of my friends, are going to be on tonight. I think I think 9 or 10 o'clock. I saw it pop up. But make sure you catch that show if you listen to this today. Otherwise, catch the rerun. But always a great show. Great guys and always a great show. So I'm hoping to catch that. I may have to catch the rerun tonight, but I'm hoping to catch that. So stay tuned for that. And that's it, folks. Until next time.